Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about today is LinkedIn messaging and all the fun that has to go with that. So as you all tune in today, let us know, where are you tuning in from? What's going on? What's happening? Obviously, we want to speak directly to you. So let us know where you're tuning in from. So we'll see all the people come here in a minute. And also, as well, for everyone that is tuning in, let us know. This is a big piece that we're going to dive into today. So we're going to talk about LinkedIn messaging. We're going to show some examples. But what I want to know is, on a scale to 1 to 5, 1 being like, I just got started literally today, or novice level, which is fine. 5 being the best LinkedIn outbound person of all time. Maybe we have some people that are like that. What would you rank yourself? So on a scale to 1 to 5. So 1 being, yeah, I'm literally just getting started, or 5 being, I'm the absolute best. Because I just want to see everybody's at before we start this conversation. All right, cool. So here we go. All right, so we got the 2.5s. We got a 4, got a 1, 2s. I see mostly 1s and 2s. Now shout out to Arizona. That's where I live now. Oh, a lot of AZ in the house. So shout out to AZ. Let's see. All right, we got some 4s in here. All right, cool. So we got a good mix. So the goal today, as y'all are coming in here, is, look, we want to be able to not only help you respond to more, get more messages, responses, but we also want to impact you all and make you feel like, okay, there's a lot more that you can do here to be successful, right? That's the key. So with that being said, you're probably wondering, who are these 2 other people up with me? Let's go from left to right. So Nick, tell us about yourself. What are you doing in terms of selling? And then I'm also going to ask you this random question, which is, what is your favorite vacation you've taken and why? Let's do that one.
Ooh, that's a good. I'm gonna start with that because that's a fun one. It's so cliche too. I've traveled some, but not like crazy. But my wife and I went to Hawaii. That was just unreal. We did 2 islands, did Oahu, did Kauai. That was absolutely fantastic. So the hiking and everything like that. We actually went when she was pregnant. She still kicked my butt in hiking. So she's a monster.
She's elite.
Yeah, she's absolutely elite. And then just to do an intro of myself. So Nick, I'm a senior enterprise account executive at V7. It's an AI startup. I've been in B2B SaaS for over 6 years now. And the first 2 of that was as an SDR. All 6 have included prospecting on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to talk about this stuff today. And I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, my wife and almost 1-year-old son.
Awesome. Shout out to Nick. Thanks for being here. All right. I'm just going to pause to see what everybody did. So, all right. So, Daria, what is your intro? And then also tell us your favorite vacation and why.
Hello, everyone. So my favorite vacation, I will also start with this one. Me and my husband, we pretty love skiing and snowboarding. So one of the most exciting experiences we had, that was skiing in Alps the previous year in Switzerland. So yeah, I truly encourage you to go and see the beauty of nature. And regarding myself, so I'm doing some prospecting and trying to go with sales growth at Super Cadence. It's also a startup, helping salespeople to add an additional outbound channel, which is sales ads. Working in sales for more than 4 years already, and the majority of my day-to-day routine, it's prospecting.
Awesome. And I guess we start our vacation first. So my favorite vacation, I'm biased. It's the most recent one that I took. So 2 weeks in Europe, but the first leg of the trip was the best. I was in Berlin and I went to the Euro Cup. That to me was like the coolest thing of all time. Like, I don't know if anyone else in here has been to the Euros before, but if you are a soccer fan or football, football makes more sense than, I don't know why we call it soccer, to be fair, in the United States. I don't know why we do that, but football, right? that was one of the most cool experiences of all time. So if you are a football fan or a soccer fan and you haven't gone to the Euros, I highly encourage you to do it, because it was just the energy, the atmosphere, the whole entire thing. It was dope. And then I am the host of this show for Cognism. We work with Cognism to produce shows like this so that you all at the end of the day can get more insight and knowledge. And then I own a company called AMP, and we basically help grow creators and help them monetize executives, founders, and creators across the board. So that's what we do. So I'm really excited to have this conversation today because LinkedIn is always a hot topic. People are always trying to learn and figure things out. And so before we get into the conversation here today, I want to let y'all know that you have an opportunity to win. And so if you've been here before, the prizes are typically around the same. But at the end of the day, the key here, right, is that you want to make sure that you get a chance to win one of these prizes. Now, how do you do that? You have an opportunity to do this if you ask a question in the Q&A. If you want to provide your messaging, we will review your messaging too and give you feedback. So that's exactly what we'll be doing here and how we can get those results. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we can be doing here. So again, I want to show this to you. If you have messaging that you want to send to us, you could come on the video and actually like talk to us about it, or you can put it in the chat and we can review it too. But you also can be in the running if you send over a Q&A, and we can go from there. So that's like the whole bit on how we're doing that. But let's get into the conversation today. So Nick, what is your top tip when it comes to LinkedIn prospecting and outbound?
Yeah, so this is going to be more of a philosophy for how you approach it. A lot of the time, my philosophy in using LinkedIn for outbound and prospecting is simply to put a face to the name. There's so much noise out there. Emails alone are not going to do much anymore. So putting a face to the name, this is where you have a chance to be creative and use LinkedIn as kind of your creative outlet, not just another channel to send the same kind of messaging that you're sending via email. So this is a more personable way to get in touch with folks. And the philosophy behind it is to show that you are human, you are real, and that you're not just throwing them in a mass sequence.
Awesome. And when you think about sequence, so when you send like a thoughtful, note or whatever, what is your follow-up process for these people?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the persona, it depends on how high level you're going. But in terms of the follow-up, if you're shooting over DMs, so let's say you connected with somebody on a blank connect request, which is my favorite move. I know, Morgan, you're a fan of that too.
That's my move.
Shoot a blank connect request, open the door. In my opinion, and this is a controversial one, in-mails are a little bit of a waste of breath. I haven't found that those land super successfully at the rate that a blank connect request and then a DM would land. And so the follow-up sequence, I mean, if you're not hearing back in 3 messages, I pretty much leave that channel alone. I don't want to spam someone and get blocked. That'll definitely hurt your deliverability, like reaching out to other people. But those are 3 different touches. They're not just messages. They're throw in a video touch, shoot over a GIF, use humor. Like I said, this is an opportunity for you to be human on LinkedIn and not just more email noise.
So question for the audience. Does anyone, I mean, everyone always has a bit on this, GIF or GIF or whatever you want to call it, but do you all use GIFs or GIFs in your messaging? So let us know, yes or no, in the chat. I'm actually just curious if it works for you. And the Nick follow-up question, and then we'll pivot over to Dara's top tip. But when you're using this GIF or GIF, are there certain ones that you really like? Are there certain ones that stay away from? Also, who are you reaching out to as well? Because people might have questions like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on your persona that you're reaching out to. I've reached out to a highly technical persona for most of my career, specifically in the cybersecurity space, and it breaks through the noise. Like obviously you're being funny, but staying professional at the same time. So there are definitely GIFs to avoid, avoid off-color humor and all that stuff. But definitely it's something less so to use in like main messaging, but more so to as a bubble up to your message, as opposed to like, are you interested, or checking in. Like it's just better in my opinion. Looks like nobody is using them, so I might be completely alone in that, but I have gotten success with it, and people do laugh at it sometimes. Now if you're selling to a persona you don't think would appreciate it and it would hurt you, like don't do it.
I wanted to get just so Jackie's asking for an example, Nick. So in a minute, if you wanna share your screen, or you can send it to me, I can show them what that looks like. So if the background, maybe you can find what type of GIFs or GIFs you're using. But also, I see someone said here, UK is quite dry for stuff like that. So to this point, right, when we give this advice, it's always contextualized to where your region's at and across the board. Like, I know everyone here is from different places. So if you're like, that doesn't work for me, completely fine. It's just another angle of how to go about it, right? And so that's that piece. But let's pivot. Dario, what's your top tip when it comes to LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I pretty agree with what just Nick shared. First of all, I always remind myself that the person is like typically the same as I am. So I hate some sales pitches right after I open that message. So my top tip would be to always remember that you need to be respectful. And, I ended with two different types of messages. The first one, I show that I did some kind of research on their profile, or maybe something related to their content, or people that they are connected or worked with. And the second could be just bring in some positive emotions. We are working daily and have a lot of day-to-day tasks, and we are drowning in such a lot of outbound noise. So I always remind myself that just sharing some compliments or humor or something like that could bring that cool emotions and catch the prospect's attention.
Yeah, and also, are you using video messages and follow-ups as well, or anything of that nature?
I use video messages only when people replied, but when silent. That's true. In my follow-up strategy for people never replied to me, I usually use also GIFs or images. I use customizable images. So usually I create some kind of, I don't know, it could be the elixir that Shrek used from that cartoon, and put the prospect image on that, and send it like, Jack, this is your elixir for being such a cool salesperson, or something like that. Like, it's also bringing some cool emotions, but that's the follow-up strategy I use usually. And I also agree with Nick that I usually do not send more than 3 or 4 messages if the person never replied.
I think those are all good stuff across the board. This actually, so we're talking about this a lot, right? So Nick, you've opened a can of worms on Gifs and Gist. So not everybody has the questions, right? So we will make sure to get to all the questions. By the way, in the Q&A, you can go in there and you can upvote it. So if you want to do that, that allows me to figure out which questions you really want, so we can focus on them, just as a heads up. But we'll make sure to answer all the questions. So here, Mark, our prospect persona, IT director, and an on-site data system is really shut down and averse to traditional personalization approaches. That's true. We're all for showing them that we're human beings, but most of my team here is concerned that a light touch with GIFs or whatever comes off unprofessional. What do you all think? So Nick, we're going to start with you. Dear, you can also give your opinion as well. I'll give my 2 cents, but Nick, what's your perspective here?
If you're concerned about it and you think it's going to come across as unprofessional to your persona, don't do it. Like, your persona much better than I do. And when it comes to the follow-ups, like, it's not a main messaging strategy. It's just a way to bubble up the message back. And it's not like you're sending 2 GIFs in a row or 3 or 4 just spamming memes. That would be definitely unprofessional. But I mean, it's not for everybody. It's not for every single persona. But I think it particularly comes across better with younger personas specifically. And you can see that on LinkedIn typically. And it's just one extra way to bubble up a message.
Yeah, I think that in this case, it might be not the really great way to going like humor-based messages, but maybe showing more research that you've done. Like, I assume that this IT director visited some kind of events, podcasts. Maybe start with that. Like, you listen to that podcast, or create some kind of value materials to share as a follow-up strategy. So for that kind of personas, I think that you shouldn't go with two-way like unprofessional, but there are still a lot of different ways you can reach out again.
Yeah, I think these are great points. I want to bring this up, and then I'm going to give like two lanes you can go. So Alex's point, and again, I know people are going to say, well, my people don't post. Well, that also could be contextually, that could be right. But I will tell you, definitely check out how people post. More importantly, check out how they comment. These are two things that you can look at to see what is the vibe of the person, how are they going to respond to something, etc. Also, I know we're talking about GIFs and GIFs and things of that nature. Someone earlier mentioned memes. So you can test both, right? I found that, I've worked with a lot of teams that are in the cybersecurity and data and IT space. Same conversation we're having right now. Oh, this may not work, etc. Region, all these different things. So what we did is that like some people would use GIF or GIFs as a test, but some people would use memes. So memes is a way you could still be funny, yet still it's not like overly unprofessional, because people still, the IT people and security people still like laugh. It's not like they're robots. Like they still have a somewhat of a personality. So they still laugh at things, right? They're still a human. So the thing is, we actually found that memes help really good for follow-ups. In terms of maybe the GIFs or GIFs. So maybe just another thing for you all to consider. But I will say, like, everyone's human at the end of the day. So these things are A/B tests, but if you feel uncomfortable, don't do them. But these are just examples of things you can do to test, right, and see if they work. But I definitely would say on the meme route, that's another lane that you could go to that could provide some responses that I've seen in this market. So that's just another thing I wanted to call out. So a couple things that we could do here is I know we got more questions coming in, so that's what we're going to do. We had a couple people already talking about this, so I'm going to bring this back up. For both of you, if you already mentioned, Dara, so I'll go to Nick here. How do you go about using video messages? What's your format? What's your program? Do you have a certain software that you use? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so I've used the popular ones like Loom and Vidyard before for easy follow-up. In terms of, I think one of the things that helped me do them more often and be comfortable doing them is creating a setting in which I felt comfortable recording videos. So like I put my bookshelf behind me, I have a good camera to record in, I have a light set up. So it doesn't have to be like a $10,000 setup, but if you feel really confident and comfortable in the environment you're recording, you're going to do it more. So that's definitely helped me send more videos. In terms of the format, typically it will be to follow up, like Daria said, to maybe a more personalized message and just put a face to the name and literally talk through their use case in less than 30 seconds. People don't want to watch a super long video. And then oftentimes maybe even follow up with a TLDR, too long didn't read, like one line sentence of like, here's the gist of my video. Those are some of the things that I've seen work with video before. This is great for outbound prospecting. It's also great for the AEs in the room that are looking to send deal nurtures or revive closed loss opportunities. If you're an SDR that you've been assigned to go after opportunities that have gone dark, videos saying, hey, this is what happened last time we talked, just want to reach back out, can go a lot further than just an email message.
Jackie asked Loom, what was the other software you mentioned there?
So I've used Loom and Vidyard to record videos. Yeah.
Cool. Jackie,
and then you can do it natively, and you can do it natively on the LinkedIn app too.
So I'm just a boomer. I usually just use the native LinkedIn feature. But again, I record that videos only when I want to bring those prospects back. So I'm pretty much super personalized. So I do not send them for follow-ups.
And one thing to note, if you use the native LinkedIn app videos, especially if you're going into like an IT persona or a security persona, you might get a better open rate and watch rate than like a Loom link or like a Vidyard link. People are super link averse. So that's definitely a positive for using the app.
I would say the key thing here is, again, test. I also say Ben said +1 to the native app. I've tested both using the software and then the native. I actually found native to get higher response. So for those of you who want to test, it's the easiest way to start testing because you don't need a software. You can just pick up your phone and do it. And then I would say to be more granular for people that are security, like cybersecurity, like IT, data within that realm, one of the core things that you want to be able to focus on and do is have that native video, because then they don't have to click a link to go somewhere else. So that's another thing to keep in mind that you all can be doing as well. So that's something I wanted to call out. Here's another thing, another question I want to hear as well, and then we'll show some examples. So someone mentioned this, because I think this is coming up a lot, and people may have this question. And also, it just depends on who you're reaching out to and who you are as a person, right? Because if you're like here, for example, 50% humor, like if you're not funny, maybe it shouldn't be that high. But like in all seriousness, for both of you, what amount of humor personality works best? Like, is it 50% professional, 50% humor? Are you like more humor? Like, what have you seen over time to be a good mix? If you have to get percentages, I know this might be exactly right, but I'm curious on your perspective.
Yeah, I can jump in to start it. It doesn't even have to be humor. If you read back your message and you're boring yourself when you read out the message that you're about to send, maybe just add a little bit of richness into it. Make it, use simpler language, or toss in a joke, or toss in a compliment. Obviously not flattery, but if you're like Daria mentioned, like if you see somebody that did a presentation, and you had a chance to take a look at it, or they wrote an article, and you can, toss in a compliment about the article, to personalize it and just humanize it a bit more. It's funny, like 50% humor, 50% professionalism. The way that I always say it is just be professionally you. So obviously you want to make sure that you're not just out there like offending people and just being funny all the time. That's not going to really get you anywhere, especially with the IT or security persona. But being a little bit lighter with your messages and is honestly like, I think it'll help break through the noise. Like the worst thing you can do is just like copy and paste, maybe like a marketing like email, and just throw that in a DM, right? It's just going to be deleted. You're going to get blocked. So keeping your messages short, to the point, and then like if you can kind of look at it as like, oh, this would kind of be a message that would be maybe sent internally on a Slack message or something like that. Maybe use that as your gauge. I don't really have a percentage of humor versus professionalism, but you probably definitely want it to be 51+% professional would be my gauge.
It's a good percentage.
Yeah, I think that it depends on the persona, first of all. And I usually check the LinkedIn's profile and the posts that usually this person posts, and his or her comments. So you might see that the person really loves humor, for example. So for that kind of people, I usually send some funny GIFs or funny images. But honestly, I think that I'm more about focusing more on personality and being more professional.
Perfect. And then actually, this is a good question, or two questions we'll take, and then we'll get into the messaging real quick. This is actually a good question. So I've done over 500 prospecting workshops easily. In the past 4 years when I was at JV Sales, I trained a lot of reps. And I had this question from time to time being like, okay, you're going to tell me to do this, but you've told everyone else this. Would we all do the same thing? So the most important thing for you all is most people, when they receive information or anything on LinkedIn or training, they won't consistently do it. So you might hear something, you do it once, it doesn't work, you'll stop. So to answer this question, most people won't consistently do something new because it is new. And if it doesn't work, they'll just divert to the same things they always did. So you don't have to worry about everybody else. To be transparent, I've just seen it. And then also the other thing is that the style of how you're going to approach it is also going to be different. So right now we're giving you frameworks. So it's like, Nick's like, all right, do a GIF or GIF, but like there are thousands of GIF or GIFs you could use. Or hey, use video. Well, everyone can deliver a video differently based on your style. So what I want everyone to pay attention to here is what we're talking about is the frameworks of how to do something. And then you're going to incorporate your own style, which is next to impossible for someone to replicate, right? So that's the thing that I would call out there for everyone across the board. If you're like, oh, I think this is too similar and our competitors might use it, like the likelihood of people consistently doing something new and sticking with it is extremely low. So by doing the things that are different consistently, you will actually beat the competition because most people stop and they're like, oh, this isn't for me. Just what I've seen so far. So hopefully that helps answer that question and everyone else's question as well that I've seen earlier. So, all right. This is something that we were talking about earlier. Blank connects. So Nick, you were harping on this, and I'm a huge fan of this. I talk about this a lot. Haley wants to know what's more context here on like blank versus personalized connect. Why do you see more acceptance with the blank connect? What is your reasoning on why you think you see more? I have my reasonings, but what's your take?
Yeah, so I have a caveat for this as well, but I think blank connects. If you send a message that you're sending to a lot of people that's templated, people are going to know. So if you're using that in a connect request, it's going to easily trigger that part of the brain that's like, okay, sales, decline, don't want to even open up potential conversation. So you can try to get around it that way. The caveat that I do want to put in this is if you met this person at a conference or you have something that you can actually mention that's relevant, maybe you spoke to somebody on their team and then you can put that in the note. That would be my only caveat to it. It's like, hey, I met you at this conference. That could be great for following up with conference leads and things like that. So that would be my one caveat. But I've seen a much higher acceptance rate with blank connects versus using a message that is templated. Now, you could argue, if you use a super personalized message in the connect request, you get better results. And that would be, a valid counterpoint. But overall, if you're trying to get a higher acceptance rate, honestly, I've seen that folks will just accept. And if they see a message, they may read only like the first 2 words. And if it's not immediately relevant, they'll just decline.
100%. I've seen that as well. Dara, anything on blank connect connections? Or you're against this? You're like, no blanks. I don't do that. I'm a personalized person.
So the majority of my connections are blank, but if someone refers me to the person, I always put that in that connection request. And I've seen a lot of people just, accepting that because they see similar, the name of their colleagues or something. So they tend to accept it.
Yeah. So, this was just mentioned here. The thing is, like, when you hear this, most of you are going to be like, that's absurd. This isn't going to work. To be honest with you, like, yeah, I get it. I understand. But the thing is, someone said earlier, right, this is the reason why, is it gets people more curious. And also, it's just, you have to think about people, how they're conditioned. So if you send like a personalized note to somebody, what's going to end up happening? Or even if, let's say it's just a note. Typically, people are like, I get sent a note. I'm going to accept this. I'm going to get pitched. And like, that's what we don't want to do, right? That's like the opposite of what we're talking about here today. That's not what we want. So what we're aiming for and what we're looking for, right, is to create that curiosity, people accept it. And that's just at least what I've seen across the board. So if you can do more blank connection requests, I highly encourage it. Don't go crazy and spam like crazy, but like, definitely do this because it's like really helpful across the board, and it can get you in the right spot. And Mark, I don't know about the sales nav integration. I don't know that piece. I would just tell you that like just go through sales nav or go through LinkedIn and just do it normal, so you don't have to run against those obstacles. That's what I would recommend you to do. But again, those are just things that you can take advantage of and go from there. So that's what I would do as well. And also, I know we just talked about this. If you meet someone, a couple people are saying this, if you meet someone in person, obviously you can personalize. If you have a referral to someone, obviously personalize. This is just like if you don't know the person at all and you're like trying to get in front of them and you're like, okay, I want to be able to convert that opportunity. So really great questions here so far. This is like the halfway mark here. I'm going to actually pivot and show some messaging from the 2 guests here on what they're doing. And they're going to break down how they're actually going about it, which is what you're all here for. But let me know in the chat so far, has this been helpful? Has this been insightful across the board? Maybe now you're sending blank connection requests and maybe you left and you're just like, I got to go send these blank connection requests now, which is great. Go get your meetings. But want to make sure this is helpful and so far insightful. Let us know in the chat. And then right now we're actually going to get into some messaging. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so y'all can see what I'm talking about. But the thing here is, right, is like everyone's going to obviously do their messaging differently and things of that nature. So right here, you should be able to see the messaging. I'm going to zoom in so y'all can see it. Dare, this is your messaging. So we do have Bilbo Baggins. So I did not think that Bilbo Baggins would make the webinar today, but he did. So tell us, okay, what was the reason that you did this? What was the response? Like, talk to us about this.
Yeah. So when the person changed in the job, like he or she get in tons of direct messages saying something like congrats. To memorize myself somehow, I decided to share like congrats to the new role, and I remind myself that that was Bilbo Baggins who said something like, and was super excited to start that adventure. So yeah, I just wish this person happy moments on the new adventure that he has right now. And usually such kind of messages I share, and again, I'm not doing that every time. I try to be, use different things. Usually people, they are replying just because they some kind of things that you guys see right now, it's super unexpected, and they say, wow, this is really cool, thank you so much, and we start the conversation later on usually.
And is this something that you're doing now for people, everyone who's changed jobs? Do you have like a change jobs and now you're reaching out to all these people that do this? Or like how are you selecting the people that you would reach out to with this message?
So I have my list of accounts, and the people I usually target is DR leaders,
Yep.
and I have a bunch of them in my connections, and I have such kind of notifications, and I check them all, guys. I do that every day. So when I see the person changed the company, I usually do that. So I congratulate the person in the comment section and also do that in the direct messages.
Ben has a good question. Okay, so yeah, so Ben has the question is, what does the follow-up look like? Do you follow up with cool messages? Do you follow that cool message with pain points, or you do
Um,
something different?
so usually person says something like, wow, thank you so much, this is cool, or something like that. And I don't want to dive into such, deep conversation after this tone, because it's really kind of positive tonation, and I think that it's non-respectful to dive into like, do you have any problems? Again, it's the very new place for it's a very few new place for this person, right? So I
Right.
usually start with asking questions regarding the have this person heard something of the new outbound channel at sales ads. I share some um, cool stuff. I usually continue the conversation with sharing valuable materials on outreach, and say something like, I feel that you now combining or will be managing the new team, or will be collecting the new team. So let me share some cool stuff for you, and you can share it with your SDRs, for example. So we continue this discussion, and I smoothly switch to the SDR ads, I call them.
Okay. So we're gonna pivot to Nick after this one. But okay, you mentioned this right here, this podcast episode. So there's probably people listening in where you do have people that listen to podcasts, or you have people, your buyers are going on podcasts or YouTube interviews. So if you can easily look that up by going on YouTube and Googling it. But what was your message here? What was the conclusion of this? Why did you do this message? Talk us through it.
So again, I usually do a lot of like bunch of research before outreach, and if there is like a lot of podcasts or articles or something that the person usually take part in, it sounds to me that this person will kind of appreciate if I share something that I found this information useful for myself, or in this case, I just send the compliment. So basically, in like this type of conversation is just to start it, like share the compliment and leave it for a time. So as you might see, like she just put it that heart, and I was waiting a couple of times just to bring back this conversation back, like not continue it right after. But after that, I also, again, I have this smooth strategy to start in with questions regarding if they heard, if they have any pipeline goals for the second year, right? Like the next year, I mean, like right now, for example, if they would like to increase their pipeline. So I started again this conversation by asking questions, and
Right.
obviously sometimes I fail with people are they have their daily tasks. So sometimes people reply to me 2 or 3 weeks later, and this is okay. It's LinkedIn.
So yeah, I think that's actually, because I think a lot of people are like, okay, what messaging should I do when someone has a podcast or whatever? How do I reach out? So I think that's a good example of starting the conversation there. So for all of you, right, you can listen into that and use that message we just shared. So Nick, I'm gonna switch to you. I'm gonna go to 2 messages you have here, and I'm excited to break this down because again, we have different styles of messaging that people can have. So let's say, okay, people are like, I don't want to use videos. I don't want to use GIFs or GIFs. I don't want to do a voice note. I don't want to do memes. They're like, I don't want to hear any of this anymore. All right, cool. So we have an example where there's none of that happening. And it's actually a very straightforward message you have here. So Nick, break down here as I share my screen. This is pretty straightforward. You just asked the question. It kind of led into a meeting here. So what were you doing? What did you tell this person? Why did this work?
Yeah, so there's 2 things going on in this message. And this was after a blank connect request for the win. And so I came in with an opinion here. Most companies are getting asked about SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliance. So I kind of already knew the answer to this, but I wanted to open the conversation with just that question. Because if they're not getting asked about it, it's not really a problem to them. And this cold outbound conversation isn't going to go anywhere. The second part of that, this is actually off of a geo campaign that I did. So like I actually targeted cities that I actually live nearby. And so this contact, Chris, actually was living in one of the cities that my mom had taught in over a decade at a high school in that community. So an extra piece of, personalization, humanization. Turns out that Chris actually, was actively getting asked about SOC 2. Meeting was set right there, and that actually turned into a closed-won deal for me. So opening with a point of view based on a question that I really was suspecting that he was getting asked quite a bit, and then going in for it. Not, have you heard of Drata or anything like that, or any features or anything like that, because at the time I was doing SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliance with Drata, but right. Just simply nothing about the company, just, do you get asked this? Is this a problem? And then going from there.
This actually is a really good. Anybody else doing messaging like this where you just come in with a question? And then also as well, in the chat, let me know if you just kind of come with the question and not the actual pitch, which obviously led to the conversation. Another thing that I like that you did here, Nick, and I think a lot of people miss out on, is there's obviously a time. I still see messages like this sometimes, but not as much anymore. But there was a time where, like, I don't know who trained this. It wasn't me. I know it wasn't y'all, but some trainer. I don't know who it is. I'm still trying to find them. Where they were like, hey, personalize by saying what college they went to or like, what school they went to, right? And like, that's personalization. We all know that that's not the case. But I like how you add the PS to relate to something that inherently, if you led with that, probably be like, kind of like, meh. But like this PS, right, adds a little bit more personality to it as well. So I always tell people reserve that PS for things that could be personal, but like they probably aren't relevant to the messaging, right? At the end of the day. Putting
it in the postscript like acknowledges that this is not the reason I'm reaching out. Not reaching out for that reason. It's just a little tidbit.
Just a tidbit, right? This actually is a good, before we go to the message, I actually want to pull this up because I think this is good from Ben. Do you think you can over-personalize your outreach? Would you say it's best to use small bits of personalization initially and ramp up as you build rapport? I think you could 100% over-personalize, but what is y'all's take?
You can definitely over-personalize your outreach and sink that 51% professionalism down below. But yeah, I think, keeping to the typical things like location-based things, local restaurants, if you're doing like a local approach, like I was doing there, schools in the area. But yeah, Thomas, over-personalization becomes creepy 100%. So if you read that and you feel uncomfortable, you should not be personalizing that level.
All right, Daryl, what's your take? Can you over-personalize? Or is this a myth? Is this a fallacy? Is this a myth? What are we going with there?
I think that you should take one piece, maximum 2 pieces of personalization. And I really suggest you guys dive into About Me section. The majority of people will use like AI generated things there, but I found a lot of cool about me sections with super extremely fun facts. Or I contacted the person because he shared that he was working in his parents' pizzeria or something when he was growing up in Italy. So I started my conversation right after the catching those piece of personalization. So yeah, you shouldn't over personalize, but this kind as Nick shared, this is awesome.
Yeah, you could look, y'all. You can over personalize 100%. Like I'm like making this face right now because I was like, what is going on? So I think it was like way back. It was like 2018, I think, 2017. So this is like early LinkedIn days. And I remember someone got absolutely roasted because they had an email that basically like they went on Instagram and like found a vacation they went on and talked about their vacation, which like that's over personalization. Like, great, you did your due diligence, but like calling out the vacation they went on, probably not something you want to do because you found it on IG. They were like, what is this? And they got called out. So yes, be mindful about Thomas's point. You don't want to be so over personalized that you become creepy and then stalk alert, the feds come after you, all right? We don't want the feds to come after you because you wrote a crazy cold email and you thought this is personalized. Like, you don't want to do that, all right? So I'm calling this out because I don't want someone to make that mistake that someone did. I hope they're okay. I don't even know if they're still in sales, to be fair. Maybe they got completely messed up, but that was something that I just want to call out. Be careful of over personalization, y'all. Okay, so let's go back to you, Nick. There's another example that you had here, and let's dive into it. So here, tell us what you're doing with this message. You're kind of taking a little bit of different route.
Yeah, so this was personalized based on research that I was actually doing. So one of the common things to do to see if somebody was maybe potentially interested in getting a compliance certification done was just to check their website. Oftentimes companies will post about this. This is public information that you can find. And when you can't find it, it's like, okay, maybe it might be on the roadmap. So asking, are either these something that's on your roadmap? Is open the conversation. It was on the roadmap. They were actually kicking things off with a competitor, but it opened the door for a conversation where you can go in and do competitive differentiation. So that's just an example of, and this could have easily been like a quick video too.
Sure.
But maybe that would have been a good follow-up if Patrick didn't respond. But it opened up a conversation. This did not turn into a deal, transparently. They went forward with a competitor that they'd already signed with, but at least that gave us information. It's like, okay, set that reminder in 8-9 months to come back around for the renewal and see how things are going.
So I've noticed in these messages for you, I'm actually curious, like how many of these do you send per day? Because these don't inherently take that long to do. They're not doing anything crazy.
No, I mean, at the peak, it was, 10 to 15. They're not crazy. It's more about the consistency every single day. This is when I was in the AE role, so we had a lot of SDRs that I would work with that do it a lot higher volume. But these were pretty hand-selected people that I knew that there's a good potential for them to respond back, just based on my network and who they knew, who I knew, mutual connections and things like that.
No, I really like the way that you're asking these questions, and then it makes it probably easier to start the dialogue. I just started testing this actually a couple of days ago. I had a response this morning on it. Is I actually take I take the same text you have, and I actually started doing them as videos. And so I started to be like, hey, quick question for you. Like, and it's like a 10-second video, right? But it asks the question from me. And then that starts the conversation from there. So you can kind of play dual if you want to, but I like the text frame that you're going with here as well, for other people that can execute. So great on messaging. Let me know in the chat if the messaging we're sharing so far is helpful. We're going to show probably a couple more. We have 15 minutes left. So definitely if you have questions, put them in. I've seen that since we've been going over the messages, there's more questions. So I want to make sure to get to your questions. But again, please upvote them across the board if you have something that you want us to touch on as well. But I'm going to go back to some of these questions across the board. Okay, so actually this is a good one. Can we talk about a headline to make yourself stand out? How do y'all think about headlines? And this is like LinkedIn, your LinkedIn headlines. How do you think about this?
List as many of your previous companies as possible. No, that is a joke.
I like the ex Google, ex Slack, ex Microsoft, like just stack it up. Just that's the move.
I got a couple of booked meetings because the people said something like, the headline you have got me curious, so let's book the meeting. So
Yeah.
definitely I suggest you guys to make it better, I guess, and tell what you do.
Yeah, if you can distill it down into like one sentence and put that in your headline, that'll probably work better than, AE at X company, posting at, previous companies. Like that doesn't really do anything. If you're commenting, especially if you're commenting on, prospects posts, if you have a simplified like tagline and a headline that simply kind of states the problem that you help people solve, like I help people solve X, or I help people with this, and then that can catch people's attention when you're commenting. That's probably the best approach. Headlines aren't make or break, but they can definitely help.
Yeah, the headline is the second most important thing that you should be looking at, because if we were to go on LinkedIn right now and you actually look at, like, if you looked at your connection requests, there are 3 things, possibly 4 things that you look at when you see a connection request. One is the profile picture. That's the first thing you're going to look at. Second thing is like the headline actually that's like under it, and then third's probably the name, and fourth is a note that they potentially have. So I always call this out as like, definitely make sure that your connection, your headline is on point, because like if it's completely off base on what you are, someone could like look at your even the comments, even when you comment on something, people look at your profile picture, headline, name, right? So you want to be like, okay, what's going on here? So it's just like another thing I want to call out so everybody just knows what's going on. But definitely something that everyone should 100% pay attention to as well. So that's just another thing I wanted to talk about. So we have a couple of things that are going on here, but I definitely would tell y'all to do that. Actually, a good question here. What time should we wait before sending another message to the prospect? What is y'all's rules here?
I usually wait for 2-3 days before reaching out again, or even more. But usually that's in the period of 3 days.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. It's typically anywhere from 2 to 4 days, and if you're doing like 3 messages, 4 messages, like if the 4th is unreturned, is like maybe jump and like spread that way further out, and put that on ice. You just, going back to the topic of being stalkerish, if you wouldn't send, like, if you think about how that would look if you sent that string of texts to your friend and there were like 6 unanswered texts, probably would be a little bit, you'd apologize for that eventually.
Do we really? I feel like we do need an episode on how not to be stalkerish. Like how to make sure you don't get the feds and cops called on you by prospecting. I mean, that might be a whole other thing we might have to do. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to find that person that got roasted back in 2018 to have them on for that.
I gotta find them. They might have completely left LinkedIn. I don't even know at this point. They might be like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out. Look, don't sleep on that guy. He would, his prospecting messages would be on point. He would have a lot of details, but he could come out a little bit too stalkerish. So I think these are really good stuff here. I actually want to bring this question up. I think it's a really good question. Nick, you kind of already answered this, but if you want to add more to it, you can. But I'm going to go to Derek. I'm going to go to you because you have a little bit more to unpack here. Do you have a daily process and cadence for reaching out to prospects on LinkedIn? Like, how much time do you spend on it per day?
Yeah, I have the cadence. Again, it's consistent of 4 messages. And I start always with personalising. So I do not have any template, but the rest are with templates. And I usually change them depending on the person and the account. So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, obviously, because I do a lot of engaging and sending a lot of direct messages. Basically, it's something between 3 to 5 hours per day. I guess like something about that.
Nick, anything you want to add? I know you mentioned
Yeah.
process. Anything you want to add to what you said?
Yeah, so on the like, I definitely don't do that many hours a day. Daria is a champion. That's amazing. I would say probably anywhere. It's more on like a contact level. So I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 like solid contacts. If I can do that every single day, at the end of the week, that's 50 to 60 or whatever that number is per week, and that adds up over time. The deals that I'm chasing now at V7 are large, over 6-figure kind of deals. And so that those are, it only takes a couple of those. So making sure that I'm going at the right person and doing that every single day is the important part.
Frequent posts. I was reading this, like what people are saying. Are you messaging only people that accept your connection requests? Are you doing any in-mails for both of you? Any
I'm curious about Daria on this one. I'm sour on in-mails, so I might
You're
not be
sour?
I might not be the best person to ask.
I used to send them, but I got something around like 2 or 3 replies. So I thought like I just spending so much time on sending that email. So I usually, right now, I'm focusing more on people that accept my connection requests.
Can we do a poll and see like if people find success with these? I'm genuinely curious.
I'm trying to see if I can do an inactive poll. If not, like, all right, put a 1 if you see success with in-mails, put a 2 if you don't use them or you see no success in the chat. This is the best way to do it real quick. Let's see. Oh my goodness.
2s for days. I knew it.
Sales now would not like this information.
I agree. It's a waste of time.
See, shout out to Matt. What's going on, man? I feel this way because it's like I was talking to someone about this like a couple days ago. I think the only benefit of an in-mail I think everyone has like 100, 150 credits per month. If people reply, then you get the credit back, right? So I think the only benefit of truly using an in-mail is if like your emails are bouncing or like no one's responding. Lash this effort, put your email and the subject on the same thing and put it as an in-mail. That's like my only piece of advice on this. This is like a last-ditch effort. I would not lead with this at all. I would not lead with this.
I'd actually double click on that too. I agree with that one. Last ditch effort to get in touch with somebody. Keep it very short. Most in-mails read like books, so like it's easy to just say like not interested. So like just like a paragraph, like 2 sentences, and then a very short subject line. If you're really trying, like you need to pay to get a message through.
When I used to send emails, I usually put in the subject line really super personalized thing like, "Wow, you've been with the X company for 10 years," and something like the cherry on top. So basically, I've seen the increase in replies because people were like, "Wow, it's something unique and about me," but not the general subject line.
Okay. 30% reply on the in-mails. So Jill's basically going to be teaching a masterclass on in-mails.
No, please, no.
No, I mean, most people don't get any response from it. So I'm always curious when people, okay, so Perplexity chat just came in, so y'all can check that one out. Okay, so we have about 7 minutes left. As we wrap up, because people obviously head to their meeting, how can people find both of you? Like, where can people find more information if they want to learn more about what y'all are doing?
Go ahead, Daria.
Yeah, so I can share the link to my LinkedIn, and I'm happy to add you all. Usually, to be honest, I check all the connection requests and I check the people before accepting them. So if there is a good sign if I have a lot of mutual connections. If not, that's something suspicious to me. And also, I'm happy to give you more light on how super cadence can improve your outbound motion. So yeah, reach out to me. I open every direct message. I promise you.
That's amazing. So shout out to Dara for doing that. And then if you want to find me, Morgan J. Ingram on LinkedIn, very straightforward. And then I also have started doing more YouTube. So if you want to find me on YouTube, Morgan J. Ingram, a lot of this stuff I'm talking about or have briefly mentioned, it's way more detailed in the YouTube video. So you can check that out there. And if y'all want to drop your links in there, you can. Again, we have about 6 minutes left here. What I also want to do is, someone's got to win something. So I want to give it to Anson Jewel. Why Anson Jewel? Anson Jewel has literally put in like multiple questions here that are actually pretty good. So Anson Jewel, you'll be the winner. Team will reach out to you so we can figure that out on our end. But as we have 5 minutes left here, let's answer some blasting questions. So if y'all can upvote them so I can figure out which ones you actually want, I can do that as well. Oh, actually, this is a good one. So shout out to Haley. Are you all cold calling? If so, when do you pull LinkedIn into that cadence? So for both of you, how does that work?
Yeah, I can jump in first. So yes to that question. And then when do you pull LinkedIn into that cadence? I'm a big fan of the initial touch as being an email, a connect on LinkedIn, and a cold call on the first day, opening up all the channels at once, and then sprinkling in cold calling and LinkedIn throughout the cadence. So they kind of like go back and forth. I don't know if there's like a more specific question around when to pull LinkedIn, but LinkedIn's integrated into most steps, like in my sequences. Typically, it would look like a blank connect on the first day, send a question about a problem I think that they might have based on other customers that we have on like day 3. And then day 7 could look like a voice note to follow up or like a quick video, just again, showing the human side of things. And then, of course, I got to say, day 12, we got to throw a meme or a GIF, right?
So I mean, you've been talking about it, so.
No, right, we got to add that in the end.
All right. Dara, you got a different opinion here.
Yeah, I also do the cold calling, and I usually, send those connection requests after the cold calling because I have experienced, people not picking up the phone from the very first attempt. That's the majority of decision makers. So the next time that I call them, they usually already accept my LinkedIn connection request. So it's easier for me to talk to them later on.
Awesome. Well, the last question that we are going to answer here, I think I saw it earlier. Okay, yeah. This one right here. Would it be to get straight to the point when a person accepted the message? I noticed that after logging in, people no longer respond to messages. So basically, as soon as they connect, is it like, let's immediately reach out? Let's wait a couple of days. I know we talked about this maybe a little bit earlier, but like, what is the cadence when someone accepts a connection request? Do you immediately jump on them, or it's like, hey, let's wait a week before we do that?
I don't know that you need to wait a week. You can obviously use the green bubble once connected on LinkedIn. If you go to DMs, yeah, Daria, you like that, right? You can see in your connections and when the people have connected, you can see when they're online. Target those people to send them a message because it'll get in front of them. I don't necessarily have a rule against reaching out right away. Definitely don't reach out with like a long pitch. But I think it's totally fine to send over a question like once they accept, give them a compliment, send your message quickly. They will see it that way because they just accepted. And I think it's also totally fine to wait a couple days and see when they're active too.
Yeah, and this is the truth. Like, people have their own stuff daily. Like, they're not, obliged to reply to you straight away. So, just give it away. Send your messages, be creative, and be consistent with that. I got the person booked a meeting just because of me being super consistent and sending, I guess it was like more than four messages. It was something between 5 to 7. And he was like, Daria, okay, let's go and talk just because you are sending and I creating like more and more things to send. All of them, they are super customizable. So that's my suggestion. Like, you shouldn't expect people reply to you right away. It's totally okay right now.
Awesome. Well, I know we've just touched on a lot of different things. As we wrap up, hopefully you all again found this to be helpful and insightful to immediately right after this conversation to go execute and do something. Thank you both to the guests for taking time out of your day to being here. And I know we mentioned a little bit about cold calling. The next one that we have will be November 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about cold calling with some fun guests that we have. So definitely tune in for that if you want to get better at cold calling. Again, thanks for everyone tuning in. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.